Welcome again to another episode of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer with Piranha Training, mental performance coach for hockey athletes throughout North America and Europe. Jeff Lerg, goalie mentors, former professional hockey player. Every week, we bring you actionable things you can use right now in your pursuit of the big dream in hockey. And for those you love, things they can do to help support you. Today, we're going to talk about compartmentalization. It's the idea that in your life, there's far too many things going on for a high-level athlete for you to keep your mind on all of it at one time. You're just going to have less. So this is our way of focusing in and finding a way to give everything you can to every single category of your life. It actually draws energy. It actually allows you to have things that you wouldn't have otherwise. Overwhelmed so easy, compartmentalization is the answer. Jeff, in your career, you've had some of the most amazing highs and some of the most amazing lows. These incredibly bad things, ACLs, total distraction, breaking your thumb, total distraction, getting called up, not playing, all the same disappointments that everybody's had. And then these amazing highs. In your life, when you look at how you've operated in your life, it looks like you're the perfect example of compartmentalization. You're a guy who, when you're in the gym, it's everything you have. When you're actually out sprinting on a Saturday morning, it's everything you have. Can you talk some about how you've compartmentalized your life to be able to give full energy to everything?
First off, thanks, Chris. It's for me, compartmentalization is a word that really means nothing when you're a teenager, and it pretty much means everything when you're an adult. And the responsibilities and things you need to accomplish each day as an adult is completely different than to what you wake up in setting out to accomplish as a teenager. When you're a teenager, you're a kid growing up, the only thing you really care about is yourself. Right? You're thinking about, okay, I have to go to school. I have to do this. I have to go to practice. I have to work out. And you don't really look at those activities as a gift, or you don't really reflect on them as being gracious. You just look at them as I have to do this. So you don't really have that skill initially with compartmentalizing. When you become an adult, you start to look at those activities as part of your day. Oh, I have kids to get fed and get off to school. I have a job that I have an opportunity to go and do. You know, I'm trying to take care of the house. I'm trying to take care of everything that needs to go into the day as an adult. So I want to talk about, before we get into my nitty-gritty operational compartmentalization, I want to talk about just as how things evolve as you're a teenager into growing up. Because the more that you become accustomed to compartmentalizing each and every task, the better off you're going to be as an athlete. And at the end of the day, those that are making their way into college sports and maybe even professional sports, they've learned how to compartmentalize all those highs and lows that you referenced.
That's awesome. Just today I worked with a group, and in this group, first time we ever worked together, I have them do this activity on paper where they write down the real stuff, the stuff you would never tell your bosses, the stuff you'd never tell your coaches. We talked about, what do you fear? What habits do you have that are in the way? What things were especially good and bad last week? Just to really get a sense of what's going on behind the public persona that people show. And it's interesting because it's largely a teenage group. And in this teenage group, these guys are telling me some of the most awful things and some of the most hopeful things. Wishing for the NHL, wishing for college, wishing to just make it to the next level, wishing to make it to juniors. But then there's also things like worrying about mom and dad, having a divorce, worrying about people having good friends, and the overuse of social media. All these things, they're all parts of people's lives. We're all humans. And it's so telling because when I ask for these anonymous pieces of paper to be filled out, you get to the truth. And that's that even though, like you said, maybe there isn't so much conscious thought about this, there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes thought about every aspect of your life. Your dog's going to die. Somebody's going to be sick. Something's going to happen. You're wishing for something and maybe feeling weird about wanting this thing and how other people are going to view you. So compartmentalization absolutely is a way to attack each one of these things with everything you have, this whole idea of dialed and driven, so that you can actually get what you want by working through these categories and bringing all your energy to each one of these categories.
And you said the key word there, attack. Previously we talked about becoming in beast mode, just being dialed in on accomplishing that task. And that's really where the compartmentalization comes in. So again, you're a teenager, you're growing up. If you have a game or a tournament on the upcoming weekend, we can't all week just be so worried about the game and the tournament. That's where your anxiety and fear of failure comes in. You have to go methodically through your day-to-day activities and take care of your schoolwork and take care of your sleep and take care of your hydration and nutrition and all the little pieces of the puzzle. And then when it's time to click the light bulb on, the puck drop, or the ref blows the whistle to start another sport, you're ready to go at 100% capacity, energy, mentally, physically, emotionally. So the skill of that compartmentalization is often used as kind of a distraction to some of those things that come out of sports, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, the pressure, all those things. So having other avenues of life where you're putting your time and attention and energy toward are oftentimes what helps propel you when it's time to perform athletically.
No, it makes so much sense. And we talk about this idea that your thoughts are everything. We talk about the idea that in your head, there's this battle all the time. If you care about something, you're going to have doubt, fear, worry. You're going to have, I want this to happen. And when you're on the ice, there's just no room for that. You have to, on the ice, find a way to dismiss every distraction, to find a way to interrupt that pattern, especially that instinctive, negative kind of worry thing. And you know what happens. You get 60 minutes on the ice as a goalie, but it's always one rush at a time. And maybe there's boredom as you're waiting for the rush to come to you. But in these times, it would be so easy to think about the whole picture of that whole game. But if you do that, and you don't find a way to break up that game into pieces, you don't find a way to bring it down to its simplest component, which is one rush, or like you said, one save at a time, if you can break up even that game into pieces, it allows you to give all of your effort to that and not distracted about what comes next. It's so helpful, but it goes out bigger than that. If, like you said, you were this guy guy or girl who gave every single thing you had, and as a hockey athlete, and you think, I'm a hockey athlete, you're ignoring these other parts that still exist. You're not dealing with those compartments. And if you can find a way to deal with those compartments one by one, then each of those can get better energy, and you have a chance of actually getting somewhere.
And I think a lot of that with the compartmentalization, especially with now technology and media available, the kids can have a game one night and go back and rewatch it on a live barn or a video platform in a rink. And you could spend your whole night worrying about a certain play, or the next day you're supposed to be doing your studies in school. You have your quiet time to study and you're so stressed on the game or the certain play that blew the game that you really never shut your brain off. And that's where this balance comes in, this approach of you're the sum of the top 5 people you hang around with most. So that's where having a good friend group, a best friend group that has the same commonalities and same goals set out in front of them as you, that's what's going to help support that. And it's not only just the people who overstress and overthink and overworry, it's those who you can have a social life and social aspect to. It's those who have learned how to dial it in when it matters most and perform when it matters most. But then when the game's over, the weekend's over, it is your time to spend your energy and effort in something else. So unfortunately for kids, that's school. Not every kid loves school, but that's the point of growing up. It's a way you develop that discipline and accountability. And trust me, if you can be with the mindset to be excellent in school and be excellent in the gym and be excellent when you're on your field of play, you'll start to develop those skills to learn how to battle the ups and downs. And for me, I look back on my playing days, now over 20 years ago when I was a teenager, I look back at the top 5 people I hung around with most. Of course, at the time, I had no idea where everyone was going to end up. But I look back, my top 5 friends, all 5 of them were captains at an NCAA Division I college hockey program. All 5. 4 out of 5 played games in the NHL. I'm the only schmuck that never made it. I'm the only guy that grinded through the minors, riding buses days before a game or day of a game that didn't make it. But everyone else I hung around with, they all made it, quote unquote. They were the ones pushing each other. We all were a self-reflection of one another. We all had this positive impact on one another. So that's where the balance comes in. You'll start to be pushed when it's time to be pushed. But then those are also the guys that, hey, on a Saturday night, we'd hang out, we'd have fun, we'd be teenagers. There was time to kind of shut the brains off, shut the minds off. right? I think the one area that I can one up them is maybe they weren't as focused with education as I was. But other than that, we all had the same common thread of what we were trying to accomplish and where we were trying to take our athletic endeavors. And it's, coincidentally, I was playing against a lot of those guys in college hockey, and they obviously had the bragging rights when they scored, and obviously vice versa when I had success. So that's really one of the things we talk about and what we're surrounded with. And you can see it as kids grow up. There's a certain friend group that they hung around with at that 11, 12, 13 years old. But then you start to get to the teenage years, and those tough choices need to be made. That's the tough part, is you have to make those choices. And many athletes that don't make the right choices, unfortunately, those goals don't become accomplished that they think they can accomplish.
So Seligman was so sick of working on things that weren't working with people that he wanted to figure out, how can you have a good life? And he came up with this program based on research over hundreds of thousands of people about what makes people actually happy and thriving and alive, not just surviving. And he found that P was positive emotions. E was being so engaged in things you lose track of time. R, relationships that we care about with people we truly care about. M, meaningful life experiences, things we actually care about spending our time on. And the last thing is achievement, but not just any achievement, but achieving things we find uniquely motivating to us. I mean, this is such a human thing. If you look at Silicon Valley, one of the reasons why so much is produced out there in the computer world is you have all these minds really focusing on this, and it really does become bigger than the individuals. If you look at LA and some of the media stuff that's created out of LA, movies and things, again, this amalgamation of all these people and all these ideas, it really creates an energy. In New York, there's this whole Broadway thing. And no matter where you are, when you bring together like-minded people, there is an energy that kind of uplifts. And some of it's setting a standard, some of it's having this community where everybody's supporting each other. But it really goes back to this thing. We talk about PERMA all the time. And one of the reasons why I love this guy, Seligman, is because he got tired of talking about just what was wrong with people. And he wanted to try to figure out what makes things right, what makes people happy. And a really happy person, you could imagine, might be a heck of a lot better when they're playing on the ice. And part of that is relationships, like he talked about. It's one of the 5 things. And relationships are so important to us. We're so social. People don't want to be alone. Now, maybe you want to take a break, but in terms of their lives, they don't want to be alone. They like being around other people. And these relationships we talk about, they're so important to us. And if you happen to be around people who are actually of like minds, trying to enjoy every aspect of their life, not just one or the other, but everything. Great in the personal, great in the athletic, great in the physical, great in the gym, great on the ice. You find people like that, you enjoy being with them, everything changes. But one of the difficult things is you're friends with people, sometimes from your neighborhood, friends with people who are maybe in your family, cousins, whatever that is. And some of these guys aren't like-minded in their goals. So you're right, it does make for tough choices. You can always love those guys, but sometimes it does pull away. And it's hard to have the discipline to be dialed in to go for the thing you want. But I just wanted to say for sure, relationships are so important and they shape us. It's like it lifts everybody when you're all in the same zone.
So it's interesting. I was at my daughter's school curriculum night previously. Found some good things out of that coming from a parent perspective. And interesting how the principal gets up there and she's like, hey, we have some updates this year and some new things added to the school. One of them, before you go to the classroom, everyone should take a look on the wall. There's a new mural. And on that mural, there's 5 or 6 mirrors pointing back at the student. And above each and every one of those mirrors is a question that says something along the lines of, who is responsible for doing my homework? Who is responsible for bringing their lunch? Who is responsible for acting appropriately? Et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the answer becomes, the answer's in the mirror. It's you. And that's the difficult part about finding the balance, is because you might want to make that decision, but you might be getting pulled elsewhere from others that don't want to make that decision. That's the difficulty in that compartmentalization. You might want to go home and study, but your friends on a Thursday night want to go out and hang out later and longer and potentially get in some trouble. So that's the time, especially those teenage years, where you start to make that decision, and that's the tough part. That's where the sink or swim mentality comes apart and comes to truth in sports, especially, is that you start to make those decisions, and then the skill becomes, when do you make that decision to find the right people to be around you? When do you make that decision to find the right mentor or coach to push you, right? When do you start to do those things? Because it becomes your responsibility. Mom and dad can get you so far, driving you to sports and athletics. That's how everyone starts. When you're a young kid, you don't even know your schedule. You just go where your mom or dad take you, right? Or any of your adult mentor in your life. You get dropped off, they pick you up, or they watch you and kind of babysit you throughout. But then at some point, it's your time to make that decision. It's your time to actively go out and compartmentalize where you're putting your energy. It's your time to go out and choose your friend group. It's your time to go out and, as you reference on the PERMA, what is the relationships that you want to put your time and energy and effort and passion into? And that's really the people that we're talking to in this instance is our teenage athletes. When do you start to make those choices on compartmentalization?
Well, I think it's so hard because even just this idea of choice is such a foreign thing. If you think about a kid growing up, from the earliest time, you're doing what you're told. You're doing what you're told. You're doing where you're guided. And honestly, people have a really hard time deciding even what they want. They're told for forever and trained that you do what other people say. So it becomes easy, especially when you're around people blame other people for their circumstances all the time. It's incredibly common. One of the hardest things is to take personal responsibility and realize that you actually have a choice all the time. But choice is foreign. You're at school, you got to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. You don't have a lot of choice, or it doesn't seem like there's a lot of choice. So it takes a lot to make that step, to make that jump. And sometimes when people make personal choices, they get hand slapped by authority. So it really is super complicated. But the truth is, we get to choose how we want to interpret our circumstances all the time. We get to choose. We really do have the power to go after these things. And that goes back to this dialed and driven idea. You can have your 74 or 77 years of life kind of almost whatever way you want. Apparently, that's the rule of the universe. Right now, I could flip this table over right here. I could. You could give your wallet to a homeless guy. We've got this range all the time to do whatever we want. You can be great at hockey. You can be half-assed at hockey. You get to choose. But you really do get to choose. And if you feel like you're doing something because you feel like you ought to or because you should, you're not choosing it. Choosing is where all the power is. And this dial and driven idea is that in every single category of your life, your relationships, your family, your relationship with your dog, your hobbies, hockey, training, sleep, eating, goofing off. And goofing off is really important. The Lightning have a whole room for their guys full of Xboxes because that's important to goof off and have time with your friends, back to relationships. So for everybody, if you can think about your life as having all of these compartments, and you give everything you have to each one of those things, you're empowering yourself, and you get good feelings from that. Not the crappy feeling you get from scrolling. Scrolling is a half-assed sort of fulfillment. It gives you a little bit of dopamine, and it feels pretty good, but it just doesn't feel great. And over time, you keep going for more and more, and you really don't get fulfillment. You want real fulfillment? Go after something and give everything you have for that thing in that compartment, and you succeed, and the rush is unreal. And it builds strength, and it builds belief. It's built with evidence. And you do this, and you get to the point where you take these risks, and you actually go for these things you want. You can have a whole life. You can have the best time at the beach. You can have the best time at the mall. You can have the best time on Xbox. You can have the best time staying up late sometimes, and the best time being a fierce, massive competitor on the ice.
I think just put in more perspective where athletes nowadays can relate is there is so much information and so many extra training sessions available, way more now than when I grew up. You know, at the time when I grew up, you grew up having a private skills coach or private trainer or private video coach. Those were opportunities few and far between. But now every athlete is exposed to many more opportunities. And unfortunately, many people, they confuse having activity for developing or being dialed, like we're saying, or being focused on one task at a time. What happens, unfortunately, is those that often do more, they're not really engaged in that activity. They're kind of just doing more. And then they sometimes build this false belief, which becomes exposed at one point or another. So the point of this compartmentalizing is you're 100% in 100% of the time on this activity. If you're going to be like our producer, Natalie, in college, she'd have a tough game on the bus ride home with her team. She'd be taking her mind off it by doing her schoolwork, preparing for a quiz or test that's coming up on the week, right? You have to take care of this aspect when it's time to take care of this one. And then when it's time to play, go and prepare and go and play. When it's time to have a social life, go and have a social life. Take your mind off those things, but whatever you're doing, be 100% in. Don't just do more activity just for the sake of telling everyone you did more, because that's not what earns it to the next level. You have to earn when it matters. You have to earn your next opportunity, and whatever you can do to kind of be 100% in on your game and any field of play or your match, that's what you have to do. And it's really about maximizing your energy use. Everyone loves certain hobbies or certain aspects and certain things in life, but you can't put all your energy 100% of the time into that. I can't go skate for 24 straight hours. I have to sleep, I have to work, I have to take care of the family. So you have to find those ways to really use your time wisely, is the best way to put it, but be all in when you use your time wisely.
In these notes that I saw today, and in most coaching sessions that I have during a year, one of the biggest fears people have is that if I don't make this, if I don't make this level, if I don't succeed here, if I don't go on, if I don't make national camp, if I don't do this thing, then it was all for nothing. This is who I am. And if I don't make this, what am I? There's this feeling that you're nothing if it doesn't work out. That's the number one symptom that your life is not complete. You're so focused on one thing that you're missing out on everything else. And the average 6 years in the NHL, and then you retire. I mean, average 6 years. We want you to have a whole life, not just a hockey life. And it's such a fear. And I just want to really, really bring home this idea that you have a chance to enjoy so many aspects of life and be so full and go for greatness and make it or die trying. And if you don't find a way to go after all those things while you have the time goes away. And the worst thing is regret. Compartmentalization is a chance for you to get everything you want, one category at a time.
And the last little lesson I can give is just the nature of sports. At some point, it ends for everyone. You determine how far you go and what caliber of play you get to. But ask yourself, do you want to swim in the sea of normalness, or do you want to be great during that time period? And I'm telling you, as an athlete, again, I didn't make the NHL, but I can stand here today saying I know I left no stone unturned, and I gave myself the absolute best opportunity to reach my personal peak. So I can sit here with having drinks with my friends that all made it to the NHL and won Stanley Cups. I can feel just as successful as them because I know that I left no stone unturned and I was dialed and I gave all my energy and effort when it mattered.
Goes back to this idea of choice. I'm not here to try to make people great hockey players in the way that I want it to be. I don't want somebody to be a great goalie the way I want it to be. I want them to choose their life. Somehow the universe gives us this blank space where we can do whatever we want. And you are so driven for this path you've chosen. I'm so driven for the path I've chosen. And I want you guys out there to go for the things you give a crap about. It's your life. If you don't find some way to go for the things you actually truly care about, you're just going along. You're just letting the river of life and other people kind of tell you where to go. And I know you got to raise your hand to go to the bathroom in school. And I know that you got to do things your parents say. But when it comes down to it, more and more, you making choices as to how you want your life to be, you're actually choosing it, opens up this door. And then once you choose, giving every single thing you have for everything you want in each category, one at a time, at least ups the odds that you're going to have something that feels like a life. And that's why I do this. And I know that's why you do this. We want to have people for their entire lives. And you have a chance, if you can really look at this and take personal responsibility, not because I said be responsible, but truly use this opportunity, use this blank space, grab the crayons, draw, mess up, tear up the paper, screw up all over the place, because that's the only way to have something that feels like a life. So really, this compartmentalization idea is really about you taking your personal choice and going to find a way to have the life that you actually want in hockey and outside of hockey. And the stuff outside of hockey helps hockey, and the stuff inside of hockey helps everything else. It's a balance. All your energy comes from flowing and putting everything you have in these categories. It's a way to change your life.
And for our athletes out there, really the biggest message out of all this is to understand it's up to you to make those decisions. You look in the mirror, you're the one deciding now, and you're the one writing your own storybook. At the end of the day, we're all going to be done playing a sport at one point or another, so you decide your own story. And if you want to be around a campfire with your buddies in the future someday saying, hey, I was dialed and driven because that was the only way I accomplished my goal. So that concludes our episode today. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again next week.
Again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.